What company did you think was too big to fail but doesn't exist now? Sears. The irony of a catalog store being all but destroyed by an online catalog store is too much. To be fair, Sears was sinking before Amazon even showed up. Amazon was just the torpedo that broke their keel. It's understandable that management didn't make the transition because they knew they didn't have the money to pull it off. They were going bankrupt regardless. It was just a matter of whether they'd go bankrupt in the 90s or now. And they kinda chose now. Craftsman going from some of the best tools you could buy to low grade was a bit heartbreaking. I still have a lot of the tools my dad bought in the 60s. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I have tools from both sides of the transition. For what it's worth, apparently the new Craftsman at Lowe's are pretty decent. And they're honoring the warranty. They've always honored the warranty, which is nice. I figured they switched from making great tools with a great warranty for a higher price to making cheap tools with a great warranty. Economy of scale and all that. Plus, the warranty costs them less per tool. Walmart already passed Sears as the number retailer in 1990, several years before Amazon even went online. They were already in a clear decline before e-commerce was much of a thing. It's wild. I have a catalog from 1916 I like to flip through occasionally. Ancestry.com has the full span of all Sears catalogs ever published digitally available to flip through. Time to revisit the lingerie section. Here's a shock for your system. Sears still exists, just a shadow of the old business, but it's there. And people in Chicago will always call it the Sears Tower. I will as well. I'm not from there, but my first time there it was and forever will be the Sears Tower. Toys R Us. Came here to comment this. Also, KB Toys. I always figured the two largest toy stores I knew about would be around forever. Private equity is a parasite on our economy. Unfun fact. Bain Capital, Mitt Romney's old firm, killed both these toy stores. Wish more folks knew about this. They just wanted to sell off the assets. Absolute vampires. Venture capitalism is what it's called. Not necessarily a company, but a brand. It's wild to me that Pontiac doesn't exist anymore. That was a classic American car brand, and then poof. Same with Oldsmobile. During the 2000s, the economy made it difficult for GM to continue to make clone vehicles under different brands. Pontiac lost out to Chevy, and Oldsmobile lost out to Buick. There was something about Oldsmobile. Maybe because my grandmother drove one and she seemed very old to me at the time since I was a kid, that made me form this association with its name and being old, like it was meant specifically for old people. So it was a car I would never have driven for that reason alone. My mechanic brother told me that's pretty much what killed Oldsmobile. Vehicular nominative determinism. Chrysler is going the same route. I just learned they only sell one vehicle now. The Pacifica minivan. Everything Stellantis Group touches turns to shit. That's going bye-bye too. You can still order 300s from dealers, but they're all dead stock. Stellantis will also kill Lancia before long. They've also got nothing going on, which is so sad. Maserati is struggling mightily. Alfa's line is shit. Dodge probably won't make it past the EV revolution. Jeep and Ram will be the only brands they give a fuck about from America. Fiat will be the lone survivor from Italy. I have a 2005 Pontiac. It's a shitbox, but it's my baby. When my husband came to America, he had a similar Pontiac to mine, but he was 21 and stupid and did donuts and shit with it until it broke. General Motors shut down Holden nearly a decade ago. Not just a car company, but part of Australia's history. My heart had wept since, but I get in one every day, and they'd really bloody perfected them. Peas it was mainly due to a fuel efficiency focus in Oz at the time. Ironically, everyone is driving in four-wheel drives and American oversized trucks, especially trades workers. The old Holden Ute is gone. East India Trading Company. For real, this is the real answer. They basically were able to dominate the world's resources due to colonialism. Where are they at now? Got nationalized. Honestly, how every company that's actually too big to fail should be handled. If it's too big to fail, it's too big to be allowed to exist. Oh, they didn't fail commercially. There was a rebellion against them that killed 6,000 British people, and putting it down, killed 800,000 Indian people. Not many companies have that problem. Blockbuster? My tiny brain could not comprehend the concept of something taking that over ever. Little did I know how big the internet would get, LOL. I also think Blockbuster. They literally had the chance to buy Netflix for $50 million and laugh them out of the room. Now I have to explain to Gen Z that Friday night at Blockbuster was once a sacred tradition. Netflix weren't the streaming service you see today through, they were a DVD rental by post service. Arguably, Blockbuster was right to turn down buying them as DVD by post became obsolete at almost the same moment in-store rentals did. Netflix saw the writing on the wall, and Blockbuster didn't though, and Netflix pivoted quickly to streaming as their main business. I remember back when Netflix hit it big with the rent by mail model. Blockbuster launched an ad campaign that was basically, don't wait for Netflix to come in the mail, come to Blockbuster for instant service. Then, Netflix decided, I'll show you instant service, and single-handedly killed the home video market. They will never get to experience how great it was taking your SO or someone else to go look at the movie game collection and pick something out together. This was also a time when you didn't even really know about everything like you do now with the internet, so you'd be surprised finding new movies out or something as well. I still miss Blockbuster. Going to the store and meticulously searching for just the right movie and snacks built up the anticipation. And of course, at that time we wouldn't be staring at our phones through the entire movie. Borders. At one point they could go toe-to-toe with Barnes and Noble, then suddenly they disappeared. It's a shame because I really like the modern vibe. There was a huge store near us. My wife would go on a Saturday and stay in there for hours. She was so sad when they closed. The Barnes and Noble that's open by just isn't all that great. Borders began as a modest bookstore in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The staff were all literature grads, and the stock was unbelievably well selected. You couldn't purchase a book without the checkout person making some insightful comment about it. You could say you were looking for a book, provide the thinnest clues, and they would know which book you mean. It was a very special place. After they became Borders Books and Music and began their big expansion, they were never the same. Kodak. They are still around, but are nothing like they used to be. Everybody in our neighborhood worked at Kodak. Now I know 2 people who work there. Us kids would be outside playing and hear the finishing time horn and know it was time to go home to see Dad. Everyone participated in the Kodak Softball League, and there was a huge sense of pride and community. They are a shell of their former selves. Bed Bath & Beyond. IMO. They went a little too ambitious with the Beyond. Same with linens and things. I still have gift cards I was unable to redeem. They still have an online store you may be able to use them on. If they're used, hold on to them for a while and try selling on eBay as vintage gift cards. Pier 1 Imports. I have a $200 plus gift card I got from my family years ago that I never used. It sits tagged to a corkboard above my desk to mock me. They still have a website. I don't know if the GEC is valid, especially if ownership changed, but you could give it a try. I worked there throughout high school. It was my favorite job. Everyone was so nice, and it was so much fun to talk to customers about how to decorate their house. No commission, no bonuses. If the store did good, we all got a bonus. So we had an incentive to do well but not stab each other in the back. I miss the candles, the pillow wall, the weird knickknacks, the overly glittery ornaments, and most of all, I miss their Papa San chair. Circuit City. It still boggles my mind that Radio Shack outlived Circuit City. I worked at Radio Shack in the mid-2000s. From the outside, it may have looked okay, but I watched them dismantle everything that had made the store what it was and try to compete with Best Buy, which was an obvious losing battle. We all knew the end was near the day they told us to get rid of the drawers to make a bigger iPod display. I worked there in the late 90s, early aughts. Right when they were making the transition from being an electronics DIY store to being a phone store. It was pretty sad. The saddest part being that you couldn't honestly deny that a huge chunk of their revenue was coming from phone sales and satellite subs. Pan Am TWA, Continental, Eastern Airlines. They were so prominent that their CEO worked in secret for the government during World War II. And on one of the trips he took, officially for business purposes but actually gathering intel for the Allies, the plane went down. The survivors were stranded on the open seas and had to find a way to survive despite lacking any significant supplies. Miraculously, most did survive, and between industry and government connections, the CEO was instrumental in getting adequate survival equipment carried on board commercial aircraft. Now, the company is a footnote and a joke in a Simpsons episode. Gateway Computers. Bought out by Acer in 2007. I still remember the cow-themed boxes. My first software engineering job was working for Lehman Brothers. I took the position in the spring of 2008 and was so proud of myself for landing a job at a big company that wouldn't disappear in 3 months. Whoopsie. Tower Records. In the 90s, every store was always packed. BlackBerry. BlackBerry is another funny one that still exists. They're a software company, secure messaging, now instead of devices. Joann's Fabrics. Once the closures happen, I honestly don't know where I'm going to buy fabric. Nearest Joann's will be 50 miles away. Really bummed. Walmart Fabrics sucks, and I'm not setting foot in a Hobby Lobby. Hancock Fabrics was the same for me. I grew up with them, and then one day gone. The Dutch East India Company. It was the wealthiest company to ever exist, and it's been long gone for hundreds of years. Saab automobiles, not large, but had been around for a good while. High quality, durable, handled well and fast. My heart is still breaking. A real Saab story, huh? Compaq was at the top of its game in the 90s. Then Dell destroyed them. HP turned their laptops into cheap plastic garbage, then terminated the name. A marginally functional American government. Babies are us. I will never understand this one, ever. It's the biggest baby store, USA speaking, that housed many different brands. Everyone used it for registries. You could find all you needed baby-wise. Babies are always being born. Why it closed floored me. The leveraged buyout by Bain Capital, Mitt Romney, bought out the company for $6.6 billion and ended up loading the company with $5 billion in debt. To compete with the likes of Amazon, Toys R Us would have had to invest significantly in its website and stores, but it ended up using most of its available cash to pay back its colossal debt. Polaroid. My grandfather was the production manager of the camera division for 20+ years. Two uncles worked at other various divisions. It was a huge company. End of the 20th century, the company failed, was gutted for parts and IP, and was wiped from the face of the earth. Wachovia. Worked there and watched them fail. Wachovia was the bank where Elle grew up. Their customer relations were terrible. We called them walk over ya. I was happy to see them go. Their failure was kind of funny. One of the reasons First Union nearly failed because they bought the Money Store, a pick-your-payment subprime mortgage lender. They later bought Wachovia and did a reverse merger as a way to hit the reset button. Wachovia failed because they bought Golden West, who did the same thing as the Money Store, just months before the subprime mortgage crisis started in 2008. At the rate they're going, Boeing. Hard to believe that they're one of only 2 companies in the world who make what they do, and they still can't get it right, because they're run by MBAs now, not engineers, unfortunately. They are too big to fail. The government will make sure the company exists. I was surprised that Radio Shack went out of business. It's still holding on. There's one in my town. Well, it's not dead, but Joann Fabrics was basically a consumer fabric monopoly in the US at a certain point, but kept trying to expand in weird-ass ways after the Panini lockdown. Tell me more about this Panini lockdown. Panini lockdown? Those damn sandwiches messing everything up. Saturn Car Company. General Motors should have used this for their electric vehicle fleet and gone direct to consumer. Fun fact, Tesla's Fremont factory was a GM Toyota plant for their joint venture cars. Geo Pontiac, the Saturn Sky, was a beautiful car. I knew few people that still have them. They build too good of a car. Unless it gets hit and shatters, the panels don't rust and look pretty new for a very long time. Prevents people rebuying in a timely fashion. Amazon? Oh wait, what year is it? I think you mean the Amazon. It is indeed dying. Unfortunately, Amazon falling would have major repercussions. Even if they stopped selling merchandise, a large amount of the internet uses Amazon for web hosting services. My university used Amazon Web Hosting, my former job used them, and hell, even Reddit user Amazon Web Hosting Services. Unless those websites were able to move to a new host overnight, Amazon going down would cause a lot of issues. Twitter. True. We still and forever will call it Twitter. Too big to fail does not mean successful large company. It's how failure would affect the general populace. Walmart could fail. It wouldn't be quick, so it would be a blip in unemployment stats. A bank holding the assets of 10% of the populace. That's going to have a huge negative impact across the board. And yet, everyone else besides you got the intent of the post and has replied accordingly. Xerox. Most people don't even know the name anymore. Xerox is still around and an S&P 600 company. In December 2024, Xerox announced an agreement to acquire Lexmark International, a Chinese-owned maker of printers and printing software, in a $1.5 billion deal. And yet for some of us, we will always make a Xerox copy of something, even when using other brands. They also could have been the biggest company in the world. They invested a load in R&D in the computer industry, created GUI operating systems, but didn't know what to do with it and ended up closing the department. The engineers went off to Apple and Microsoft, and the rest is history. Surprised, nobody said RCA. Sun Microsystems was huge when I first started my career here in the Bay Area. I'd drive by one of their old buildings on Calaveras Boulevard in Milpitas a few times a week on my way to work. Makes me sad mostly because that means I'm stuck in nonsense traffic. That is Calaveras 237 and nothing to do with Sun, but still. Boeing, a company where employees were treated like family and were proud to work there. Then McDonnell Douglas took it over, but keeping the name. The MD executives took over, they moved the headquarters to Chicago and adopted all the MD policies of how they treat their employees. Outsourcing, cutting corners. Bill Boeing, the original founder, would be horrified at what it's become today, because the original Boeing doesn't exist anymore. McDonnell Douglas bought Boeing with Boeing's money. Haven't seen Kmart yet. They were very important in small towns, especially with layaway. They had stores in many big cities too. Digital Equipment Corporation, second biggest computer manufacturer in the world, creator of the PDP and VAX lines of computers and numerous revolutions in both hardware and OS design. Absolutely massive company, but they didn't see that the PC and Unix workstation world was coming for their entire market until it was too late, and they suddenly had no market. They divested themselves of all their side businesses to raise cash, but then had no products anyone wanted. Compaq ate them, and then Compaq was eaten by HP, and now HP is little more than a printer toner company. An entire massive product line and legacy that disappeared almost in an instant without a trace. Nissan, soon. I had multiple Nissans and swore by them in my young adult life. Maxima, Armada. Amazing cars that were extremely reliable with literally zero issues. So affordable. Then that damn CVT. I had my Murano for years. Then one day after getting off work at 3 a.m., I crossed the tracks and my car wouldn't move. Lights were still on and I'm panicking. Then it jerks into drive and I haul ass to get home. I was only 2 minutes away. 4 months of constant issues. It kept dying over and over and over. The mechanic didn't help. May have even been the main issue. I developed a severe paranoia to drive closest to the right so I could pull over if my car died. Everything was fine for maybe 2 months. Then the stop and go started again, followed by a clicking I can't explain. I said, oh no, not again. So I let my car sit until my day off, drove it to the dealer and got my Toyota. Never ever Nissan again. It gave me PTSD lol. The Dutch East India Trading Company. It was the largest company in history and was valued at its peak at $7.9 trillion in today's dollars, making it bigger than the 2 largest companies in the world today, Apple and Nvidia. Put together. Chakiwaki Duda, considering they had a TV show where they made elaborate cakes for celebs, and the shops in Brighton and London always seemed very popular, I was astounded and upset as I really loved their cakes. In the 90s, there was Enron, who was the sweetheart of Wall Street. Every investment magazine said they were the greatest company. And then it failed. That was a pretty big failure. I have the worst luck. I bought my first computer at Circuit City. I bought my phone at Radio Shack. I had Sprint. Every major purchase, the company goes under. Blockbuster. For a middle-aged person, Blockbuster was what you did on a weekend or weekday evening. The idea that video stores would disappear really quickly just wouldn't even seem possible. I was somewhat surprised when Zenith Television went out of business. General Motors going bankrupt was a big, but they came back. I'm more curious what long-standing companies could fail in my lifetime. 3M? DuPont? Not exactly too big to fail, but I am a little sad about no more Borders. Barnes & Noble is still around somehow. Not sure if they're still selling Nooks. They've diversified to also selling DVDs, vinyls, toys, and board games though. Thank you for watching. Write comments, put likes. Do not forget to watch other videos.